When you find a fully functional gaming PC for just £10, you'd be absolutely mad to turn it down. So when I found this ancient gaming PC listed on eBay for just £9.99 with no bids and a local collection, I knew it had to be mine. So for a gaming PC that costs the same as 10 of Greg's beautiful sausage rolls, how bad can it really be? So we're currently on our way to go pick up the PC that cost less than £10. That is less than 10 Greg's sausage rolls. Now, I don't really know too much about it at the moment. I know it's got a Pentium 4 that's clocked at 2.66 gigahertz. That's probably going to be a single core, single thread CPU, no hyper-threading on it. I don't know how much RAM it's got. I know apparently it's got multiple DIMM slots populated, but that's about it. I don't know the motherboard. I pretty much don't know anything. I know it's got a pretty good looking case. It's reasonably modern. The PC was probably built in the sort of early 2000s, maybe 2003, 2004. Case probably upgraded later down the line. Like I say, NVIDIA FX 5200, it's a very old gaming PC, but the point is that it is a gaming PC and it did cost less than £10. Now, the only known issue so far is that the 30GB hard drive is either broken or the operating system on it isn't working. So we're going to have some troubleshooting to do when we get this back home, but at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is that it's just going to be a broken hard drive that needs replacing, and they're not exactly expensive. So by the looks of things, we're going to be in for a pretty good bargain here. So then, this is just a quick clip of me bringing back the gaming PC. How about we take it home and open it up and see what's inside? And so, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the £10 gaming PC, with of course my own monitor added in so we can actually make use of it. So what hardware do we find waiting for us inside? Well, taking a look, it does look like there are a few loose SATA cables, one that's plugged into absolutely nothing, and another one that's only plugged into the motherboard and nothing on the other end. That's probably a sign for things to come, in the sense that, well, they were claiming there were some hard drive issues and potentially operating system issues as well. So perhaps they've tried using SATA hard drives, I'm not sure. But either way, we've still got our 30GB IDE hard drive in here, and interestingly enough, the 4-pin CPU connector also seems to be disconnected, so I'll quickly go and plug that back in before we try booting this machine up. And so it was time to plug everything in. So the monitor and the PC itself were plugged into power, and then I connected the lone VGA port on the back of the FX 5200 to my 1600 by 900 resolution monitor. It's a little bit more keeping with the time, though still probably far too modern for this system. And so with that connected, all I had to do was plug in the keyboard and mouse and get ready to boot. Spamming the F2 key like there's no tomorrow, I did manage to successfully enter the BIOS, where we were able to confirm the hardware we were running. Inside, we did indeed have a Pentium 4 running at 2.66 GHz, single core, single thread. We also had a 30GB hard drive and two 512MB RAM sticks for a total of 1GB of RAM. Our 30GB hard drive was also detected, so that was a good sign that it might actually be working. So the only logical next step is to get Windows XP installed. As you can see here, I've got a Windows XP installation USB stick. How about we get it plugged in and get booting? Unfortunately though, things never run that easily. As the seller said, he'd never been able to get an operating system installed, and I was having difficulties as well. Every time I tried booting from a USB stick, it didn't want to play ball, giving us a message that it was having an error loading the operating system. Unfortunately though, despite its age, this desktop came with absolutely no CD drives or floppy drives, and so I had no other way of installing an operating system. So I did have to quickly borrow another IDE CD drive, plug that into the PC, and load everything up with an XP installation CD. And once I'd done that, we were finally able to get things working. But by this point it was slightly later on in the evening and it was getting dark and raining, so I decided to bring everything inside so I could install Windows XP in the warmth of my own home. And as you can see, well, Windows XP is even struggling to render out the Windows Explorer menu here. but that was quickly resolved by installing the latest drivers for our FX 5200, which are about a decade old at this point, but they are still the latest and the greatest, and they work really well. Still available on the Nvidia website as well. And so the question remains, what's it actually like to use this PC? Well, it certainly has its disadvantages. Windows XP as an operating system certainly isn't what it used to be. Due to countless vulnerabilities, I don't feel safe connecting this thing to the internet. So all files that come in and out of this PC go via either a CD drive or a USB stick. Not exactly the most convenient way of moving files about. On top of this, lots of the games that this computer can actually run just straight up crash anytime you try to load them when you're connected to a widescreen monitor. And because I don't own anything other than a 16:9 or ultra-wide monitor, that does make things a little bit tricky. So the games that did actually open, launch and run, well, how did those ones perform? Well, it's usually here that I'd start looking at the FPS figures that I record in MSI Afterburner. However, on this machine, it just crashed every time I tried to open it. Bit of a recurring theme. So you guys are just going to have to take my word for it when I say that the games actually performed really well. Like I say, I wasn't able to record actual FPS figures, but on the screen at the moment you can see the gameplay of different games that I was able to test, and it actually looks pretty smooth. And there was no stuttering either. Now this is likely because the games that I was playing are about 15-20 years old. But that does make sense because this machine itself is about 15 or 20 years old as well. So these are the games that this machine was designed to run. Of all the games that I was able to open and play, they all performed really well. Both 3D and 2D titles ran well on this card, and do you know what? I'm happy with the performance. Even though this is terrible by modern standards, considering the age of this machine and the price I paid, this is a great little gaming experience. Okay then, so let's summarise. Is this PC worth the £10 that I spent? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I would say yes it is. But only if you plan on using this as a retro gaming PC. You definitely won't be using any modern software on this PC, at least not from first-party sources. Windows XP just generally isn't supported anymore. And that's mostly because of the large security vulnerabilities that it has now that Microsoft no longer supports it. As I was saying earlier, the only advisable way of using this PC is by taking files on and off using a USB stick so that you don't risk infecting your network with any potential viruses. If you wanted to daily drive a system like this, then Windows XP definitely isn't the way to go. You want to use something more modern, and Windows unfortunately isn't going to be the answer. If you want to use a PC like this, Linux is probably going to be the way to go with a distro such as Ubuntu. That would definitely allow for some more modern experiences, but definitely wouldn't expect a 2021 experience. For retro gaming, this is actually a pretty good PC though. Sure, without a 4x3 monitor, gaming can be difficult, especially if the games don't support widescreen monitors by default. However, once you overcome these challenges, it's actually a really good experience in which you can have some good fun. I know I felt a lot of nostalgia playing games like this on this PC. So yes, as I said before, I definitely recommend picking something like this up, because even if you aren't planning on doing any retro gaming, consider all the components that I got for this price. I paid £10 and I got a fully working computer, including a fully functional power supply and case that I can reuse in another build which is more modern. So if I was putting together another build, I'd still be able to use lots of the components from this PC, and would have saved a lot of money in the process. And so there we have it. We finally answered the age-old question that nobody was asking. Should you buy a gaming PC that costs less than the average takeaway? And the answer is yes, provided that you can get a modern operating system running, you can and should purchase one of these machines. And so if you did find this video useful, or you just enjoyed watching it, then be sure to leave me a like. And if you didn't like this video for any reason, then make sure to leave me a like. But anyway guys, if your feelings are more complicated than that, then leave a comment down below and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.